Hello, this is Stone Warden coming back at you today with another video update. And today we're going to be talking about some of the same things that we talked about yesterday, which was the pattern going forward, the last grabs from hurricane season, and the potential for some severe weather episodes. One thing I can tell you guys is that if you're in the eastern part of the United States, we're not expecting to see any rainfall for at least the next 10 days. So if you're on the eastern part of the country, particularly if you're in Florida, you there's always a chance of rain down in that area. But if you're north of there and across the eastern part of the country, expect some chances for a pretty significant drought if these rain if this lack of rain just continues to be a common occurrence, which for the next 10 days that seems to be likely. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And also, there's an increasing signal that we'll get some tropical development towards the end of the month. So, one thing that we can also say for sure, or with some pretty good confidence, is that the weather will get active towards the end of this month, going into early November. Now, I started off with the 500 millibar heights because I love looking at this. I think it gives me just a great intel on what we will be dealing with at least for the rest of this month and probably going into early November. You see right now that we have a ridge over top, so you can probably tell that our temperatures are starting to moderate, especially in the afternoons. And even as you go further in the week, our low temperatures will also start to moderate as we have this ridge over top. So we're going in time, and we have a trough that moves through, and there's going to be some type of trough that moves through tomorrow and Thursday, which should bring us some cooler air briefly before we have another ridge that moves over top, and this should increase our temperatures, especially around Halloween. So if I'm definitely a sucker for cooler Halloweens. I love it being cold at Halloween. Probably won't be the case this year as you have a ridge that builds over top. It seems like all our cooler air is pretty brief, pretty fast before our ridge builds over top across the eastern part of the country and our trough builds off to our west. And so you can kind of see how our trough digs and then goes up, and then there's our ridge right over the eastern part of the states. This will do a couple things. One of those is this will moderate our temperatures over the eastern part of the country. This will also continue our drought until we can get back under some troughing and get back under some decent rain chances. Don't expect any rainfall, at least up until Halloween. Um, them just going further out in time, and this is getting in unreliable range, but you can see our pattern just remains pretty zonal as we go later on into the month into early November. But before then, it looks like we have that west coast trough, east coast ridge, which probably means some severe weather in the middle part of the country as that trough digs, especially get some deeper troughs to dig. Probably have some severe weather episodes in the middle part of the country, and we'll probably continue that dry spell here in the eastern part of the country with no real rainfall expected at least for the next 10 days, probably longer at this rate. And so here's your EPS, 500 millibar heights. And again, like I said, I love using this tool. And you can see how our ridge really starts to build around Halloween. And Halloween is probably when we're going to see our next active weather event with that West Coast trough digging in. This should bring some severe weather to somebody. But again, that all dependent upon how deep does this trough get, how much moisture pull do we get from the Gulf. There's a lot of things that go into that. But I can go and tell you though, this look definitely could favor some severe weather. You can see our ridge over top over here in the eastern part of the country, which means that our temperatures are going to be moderating at a pretty good clip, which means that we should expect some warmer temps for Halloween, and our low temps will also start to moderate as well. And then our pattern looks to go somewhat zonal as we go into early November, but again, that's getting out into unreliable range, so can't say that for sure. And just to give you another look at our precip and temperature outlook. And here's our temperature outlook. You can see our temperatures are moderating. And as we go to the 14-day outlook, it'll actually get even warmer. So as we get towards Halloween, early November, our temperatures will moderate a lot more. You can see our west coast trough. So the CPC outlook gives us, another great look at our pattern going forward with warmer temperatures to the east, cooler temperatures to our west with higher rain chances. And here's our 6 to 10 day outlook for rainfall. And you can see how the dry spell is just going to continue. And you can see how if you're in Florida, it won't really affect you much. But if you're north, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and all the northern states, West Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania, all these areas, expect a lackluster rainfall at least for the next 10 days, going towards Halloween. So this will certainly bring about drought concerns to the eastern part of the country with this lackluster rainfall. And then you can kind of see how our pattern is starting to be a little bit more favorable for rainfall as you get that west coast trough, especially across the middle part of the country where I think some severe weather may take place. But you can still see in the eastern part of the country where we're really not still in the green area and we're still in that brown area in parts of the eastern part of the country, signaling that we're still seeing drought concerns across the eastern part of the country. So again, this will bring about concerns and maybe even wildfire concerns if we continue to get these dry cold fronts with no rainfall. That just really increase our winds. So again, a couple of hazards could be at play in the eastern part of the country, with one of those being the drought and possibly the wildfire risk if we continue to see these dry conditions continue. With our next best chance of rainfall, it may not be until sometime in early November, and that may just have to come from if we can get a tropical system form down here in the Caribbean. So again, a couple things to watch out for, but again, I don't really expect the weather to get really active again until later on this month. So I talked a little bit about the tropics. I want to show you some ensemble members because ensembles have been pretty excited with this area in the Caribbean. I think the GFS is a little bit more muted than the EPS, but you can see how it really racks things up towards the end of this month. And that, I mean, look at that. That's a pretty big signal for some type of tropical development towards the end of this month, going into early November. So this could certainly bring some tropical troubles to the Caribbean, and possibly maybe to the East Coast for one last grabs from hurricane season. But again, later we get, the more unfavorable things become. But I do think that this time period is pretty favorable for some tropical development. But again, we're far out, so I can't get into details. But I do expect between the 31st and like the 8th for some type of tropical development in the Caribbean. Now here's the EPS ensemble members, and we're going through time. You can see how things really start to increase again later on in the month. It's a little bit more. This is actually the more muted model compared to GFS, which usually it is. But you can kind of see how things rack up on the EPS as well. So again, things are probably going to start to really ramp up towards the end of this. I've been saying rack up the entire time. I apologize, guys. I meant ramp up. Things really ramp up towards the end of the month with tropical trouble and maybe some severe weather episodes. So things will get active towards the end of this month. But until then, guys, we're looking at pretty anemic weather with dry conditions battling the eastern part of the country with higher precip chances to our west, where some severe weather episodes may end up taking place later on this month. Looking at SPC outlook, and there's no real severe weather concerns either over at least the next 6 days. So again, pretty quiet weather, but again, I wouldn't be surprised as we get later towards that 31st time frame and we get some severe weather episodes to happen in our middle part of the country. So that's all I really got, guys. Pretty quick video today. I'm not going to overtalk you, but I just want to give you guys an update on our pattern look. We got a West Coast trough, East Coast ridge, so expect some severe weather episodes in the middle part of the country with possibly some tropical development towards the end of the month in the eastern part of the country.